everybody, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Boobies and Noobies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today's romance review marks the 9th episode in Boobies and Noobies' annual holiday special, The 12 Days of Boobsmas. We are quickly counting down the days to Christmas. Hanukkah has already begun, and today marks the 9th day of Boobsmas. All month long, we've been celebrating the wonderful world of holiday romance books and sharing a few of our favorites along the way with a few lucky giveaway winners. Now, by the time this episode airs, we'll likely have already wrapped up this year's Boobsmas giveaways, but the best way to find out if you can still enter and win is to follow us on social media at Boobies Podcast across the channels, except on TikTok, where you will find me at Real Kelly Ray. That's also the best place to know what's coming up next for the podcast and to keep in touch with me directly. Now, following the 12 days of Boobsmas, Boobies and Noobies will be taking a short winter hiatus, but never fear, because we will return in early 2023 with more romance reviews, author interviews, plus a few new surprises in the works. And in the meantime, you can always catch up on past episodes, including the 12 Days of Boobsmas Past, by listening on your favorite podcast app or on our website, boobiesandnoobies.com. Also, I hope nobody minds if I take a second to shamelessly plug my holiday novella, Meet Me in Los Feliz. It's not too late to grab yourself, or the romance reader in your life, a copy for the holidays. And last but not least, if you feel like spreading a little extra Boobsmas joy, you might consider leaving this podcast a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and or supporting us on Patreon. You will find links for all of the above in today's show notes, but in the meantime, on to today's Boobsmas read. Joining me today is an honest-to-Krampus romance reading newbie. He's a longtime friend, a fellow thespian, and a first-time Boobies and Noobies guest. Please join me in welcoming Owen Hansen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome, sir. Yeah, I feel like you can't say thespian without, pronouncing it as thespian. Otherwise, it just doesn't have the same ring to it.
I usually correlate thespian, so I lean towards the lesbian side of thespian.
Also great. You can't go wrong either way. But I am so glad to have you here. Honestly, I am racking my brain with why it's taken 6 seasons to get you on the podcast, but you are here. We are rectifying that situation. And I did just want to confirm, especially since I put it in your beautiful introduction, are you a romance reading newbie?
I am a newly christened romance reading newbie. I will say...
newbie no more.
A newbie no more. Oh, I popped that cherry.
I know that you haven't read romance before, but when it does come to, reading in general, like where do your interests usually lie?
My interest, to be quite honest, I am mostly nonfiction reader. I do like me a good old-fashioned biography, especially reading about people's lives. I think there's something intimate into knowing people from the past or people of our current generation. So it's kind of fun to get an idea where people think of themselves, and then also hearing about people's perspective on others and their actions.
Well, I appreciate you stepping outside of nonfiction for this quick, steamy holiday read.
I'm glad I did.
First things first, when it comes to the holidays, I did want to ask you, do you have a favorite holiday tradition and or memory?
Let's see. I would say one of the biggest family traditions during the Christmas season for my family is cinnamon rolls.
Ooh.
My mom started with it, and then she essentially indoctrined my sisters into the activity. And anytime that my sisters start doing something, it's such a busy kitchen that I'm immediately kicked out of the room.
Too many cooks.
So I'm just on the side.
Too many
Too
cooks
many
in the
cooks.
kitchen.
Honestly, I love this tradition that my family started where it's about making the cinnamon rolls, and it's sort of like how some families will make their own tamales.
Yes.
And will share them amongst friends. We do the same thing with cinnamon rolls, and we include a small little scrap piece of paper with instructions on what to do and how to cook them.
That's important.
Yes. Otherwise, they get too crispy, and it's not fun for anyone.
Yeah, nobody wants a crispy cinnamon roll. What kind of monsters are out here eating crispy cinnamon rolls?
Who knows? But it's kind of like the way that the recipe makes them is to roll into the singular pan with the frosting as the bed. And then you flip it over, and the frosting has caramelized from the cooking. And then it oozes down and solidifies into this gooey dough, not doughy, but chewy little morsel that you can pull and rip apart.
My mouth is like filling with saliva, like as you speak. This sounds so good.
And then like you can add all sorts of toppings to it. The other tradition, which is like an ancient Danish tradition, is Ebelskivers, which don't even try to spell the name. Just don't.
I won't.
A little history on it. It came out of a Prussian war where soldiers were trying to cook some raw batter with some scrap metal. And the scrap metal had some dents in it from cannon fodder. And so they pour in the batter and trying to make pancakes. The dough then goes into these holes and it fills into these little balls. And they realize that these balls are better. And so it's kind of like a little waffle pancake ball that you can also insert fruit, jams, or even whipped cream. So it's like a delicious little pop in your mouth snack.
That sounds just as delicious as the cinnamon rolls. So I want to come to your house for all of the yummy eats and treats.
Yes. So like the morning starts with the rampage for the presents. And at the same time, the coffee maker's brewing. The cinnamon rolls are thrown in the oven. And by the end of the Christmas barrage, Ebelskivers are on the stove being made and popped into a bowl.
I love this. This sounds delightful. I also have to ask, and anybody who's a longtime listener will understand where this is coming from. If you're new to Boobies and Noobies, I will explain in a moment. But when it comes to cinnamon rolls, here's my question for you, Owen, and that is, what do you drink when you're eating a cinnamon roll?
Ooh, I will always, 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 always choose black coffee as my go-to.
Okay.
Because I like the stark separation of black coffee and sweet cinnamon roll.
Okay.
I think it's a fantastic combination. I know some people out there will be like, you freaking animal.
I feel like that's a normal answer.
I've been ostracized for eating it with just plain black coffee. And people are like, why? Why do you do that? Why do you not put cream or sugar or anything in your coffee?
Oh,
I'm like,
so they're just upset about the way that you take your coffee? People can fuck off.
Yes.
That's stupid. No, okay. Let me tell you why I ask this. And I do think coffee is an acceptable answer for this one. So in Boobies and Noobies past, I believe it was maybe circa 2020, 2021, we recorded an episode during which the man and woman, and I think it's his family, somebody's family's there, I don't know, they sit down to have some freshly baked cinnamon rolls. I'm here for it. Food porn all the way, especially in holiday novels. I get so excited about it because it's usually like you're describing, these yummy, gooey, delicious treats. They sit down to have these cinnamon rolls, and she pours herself a nice, big, cold glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. And I just about threw that book out the window because I was like, I cannot in my right mind think of why you would drink orange juice with a cinnamon roll. And I talked about this with my guest at the time, and she didn't find this nearly as offensive as I did. And it kind of sparked this whole conversation about what do you drink with a cinnamon roll. And so for me, I think I will get some backlash for this as well. And people will think that I'm a psychopath in some regards. And that is that I love drinking milk by the glass. And I know that there are a lot of people over the age of 8 who are like, that's psychotic. Why would you sit there and drink a glass of milk? Like, it's not milk in your cereal. It's not milk in your coffee. It's just milk. And I was raised in a family where like anything that was like doughy or cakey, you know, a piece of chocolate cake, chocolate chip cookies, a brownie, we had a glass of milk with it. And I still do that to this day. Like I will not have a piece of cake usually unless there is a milk option for me to have with it, because you don't drink water. Like that's boring.
That's the true psychotic.
Right.
The person who thinks a cold, plain tap glass full of water, tap water,
wash that cake right down. Like, it's just
this really adds to the flavor.
It's just so, but the orange juice really threw me off. And then my guest at the time, she actually went and took a video of herself getting a cinnamon roll and eating it with a glass of orange juice to taste it and see how it went. And she was like, yeah, it's not bad. Like, but to me, milk, top choice. Coffee, I do understand. Like any kind of like coffee beverage. Like, I don't mean just like black coffee. Like any kind of coffee, I think is like an acceptable choice. I will never think that orange juice, or honestly any kind of juice, is an acceptable drink to have with a cinnamon roll.
I hear you 110%. Like the only thing that I'm arguing about this choice of beverage is citrus flavor in general. Like I think the sugar and the citrus goes hand in hand, but I think orange juice is a little too sweet for my taste.
And you know what's funny is I do like, I will buy a pastry that has orange in it, like a, you know, orange currant scone, or like an orange. I think orange and chocolate go really well together. So I can see doing some kind of baked good with that. But I'm not going to drink orange juice with cinnamon roll. Like
I feel like the orange juice just dominates the cinnamon roll. Like you're meant to enjoy the cinnamon roll.
Yeah. But anyway, this is an argument we've been having for like 2 years now on this show. So I love finding any excuse to bring it up. And obviously, if you're listening to this episode and you have opinions, feel free to weigh in on the conversation and let me know what you're thinking.
Yes. Tell us how you truly feel about toothpaste and orange juice.
And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's reading selection, and then we will play a quick game that I am calling Tit or Tat. But first things first, today we are discussing Nutcracker with Benefits by Liz Alden. And this contemporary holiday romance with an almost billionaire, we have to be specific about that because they're specific about it in the book, was published in October 2022. It's available on Amazon for $2.99 Kindle edition. I will say it's also on the shorter side. I think it's a little over like 100 or so pages. This is the first book in Liz Alden's holiday retelling series, and judging by the title alone, I'm sure it'll be pretty clear to most people that this one's inspired by the Nutcracker. There's also a lot of character names within the book that match up with characters from the Nutcracker. And if you read to the very end of this book, you will know that Liz does have other books planned in this series, and she's even announced the title of the next book, which is Frosty Proximity, and that's going to be Jeb and Kara's story. Kara you meet in this book. Jeb is talked about in this book, although I don't think we actually meet him in the story. So, you know, some periphery characters from this story that you will see have a future romance together, which I don't know if you know, Owen, that's pretty normal in a lot of romance series, is kind of what I think of as like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They all have their own stories, but they show up in each other's stories too.
I kind of gathered, like, okay, obviously we're caring about these characters in particular when we got to the end a little too much. I'm like, we care about their opinions because now they're going to be in the story that's coming next. Okay.
There you
Gotcha.
go. There you go. Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of Clara, I feel like. I genuinely don't remember seeing anything from Jeb. I know that we hear about him and he kind of like I don't want to say he replaces Nash, but it's like he kind of takes his position while Nash is away, like taking his little trip. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how that one plays out. Judging by the title, Frosty Proximity, obviously there's going to be snow, I would assume, and some sort of like forced proximity, because that's, I think, what the play on words is there.
It's obviously a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering how much Frosty the Snowman like fits into that story, or if it's just title alone. Like, are they going to build a snowman? Is he a metaphorical, emotional snowman? Like, what?
Do you need to melt his frozen heart with some sort of wooing? And is it his heart or is it her
or
heart?
Hers, yeah.
Let's get that.
We don't know. And we're going to have to wait until next year when it comes out. So
gosh, you tease.
I know. Well, before we talk about the book, I'm going to do a quick round of tit or tat with you, Owen. And these are all places, yummy eats, treats, things, all of which can be found in Nutcracker with benefits. So it's a very simple either or. You just pick which one appeals to you most. Starting with white lights or rainbow lights?
Rainbow. I need color. Yeah. I mean, I love a nice ambient white light as long as it's in like a warm tone. If you're giving me cold, bluish, white, stark lights, I will immediately leave. I'm like, I do not need the sterile, bitter environment that you occupy. I will go and make my own. Thank you. Have a nice life.
Wow. I did not think you were going to get so heated about lights, but honestly, I'm not upset about it. So you know what? I'm kind of split on this one because I grew up in a rainbow light household. And like to this day, we put rainbow lights on our Christmas tree at home. We put them around the garage outside my parents' house. In my apartment, I use white lights, but you're right. It is more of like a warm glow. And the only reason I think I kind of like that more is that I have so many ornaments that I collect from everywhere I travel, and they're all weird colors and shapes and sizes. And so to me, that's kind of what adds the color to my tree. But at the same time, if you saw my apartment, I have a blue couch. I have a pink rug. I have an orange chair. Like I do not shy away from color. So I do love rainbow.
I love that.
Next one is stockings or presents.
Ooh, I am someone who likes to give my roommates gifts every year.
Me too.
And I found that it is more fun to put together stockings than it is to put together presents.
Okay.
Because like stockings to me is a little bit more personalized. It's something that's like you have to fit it in there. So you're like, I only have this much room, so this is all I can be able to fit in here. And so it's a lot more manageable and economic.
Yeah.
To handing out gifts, especially if you're a gift giver.
Yeah, and I think you and I are both big on gift giving. So I totally understand that.
Also, it just makes it feel more personal.
And you can get, like, the first time you do it, you can get a really cool stocking. Like, picking out the stocking alone can be, like, part of the fun, part of the gift. So, yeah, I'm with you. I like both. Somehow we've gotten to the point in my family where it's just mom and dad and I, and I'm pretty much the one who shops for the stuff in everybody's stockings, like including my own. Like it's just, I don't know how we got to this point, but I think they've gotten a little grinchy as they've gotten older, and I just see things and I'm like, yep, gotta have it. And, add to cart. Oh, we can't go home without that. That would be losing money. So, yeah, every time I think I'm done Christmas shopping, I end up buying something else because I'll just come across it and think, oh, this would be like a perfect stocking stuffer. So I happen to love doing stockings. Not to say I don't love gifts, but I'm with you in that there's something special about stockings too, because you only do them at Christmas. It's not like you can give somebody a birthday gift like all year.
Mm-hmm.
How about as far as hobbies go, baking or cross-stitching?
Oh God. I'm going to go with baking. I have done cross stitching before and I do not have the patience for it.
I don't either. And I wish I did. I really do. But you also, I mean, I've eaten things that you've made and it's been very good. So I say stick to your talents.
Thank you.
How about a Christmas story pajamas or grandma got run over by a reindeer pajamas?
I am going to stick with I'm going to stick with grandma got run over by a reindeer pajamas because I do like that song.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like every rendition, whether it's like clean or dirty. I like it.
I don't know if I've heard the dirty version of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. I guess I'm missing out. You're going to have to send me a link for that one.
I'll try and see if I can find it. It was like, I think it was either a TikTok or if it was,
of course it was.
On YouTube. I'll have to hunt it down for you.
Okay. I will say I do love the Christmas Story pajamas that Clara wears in this book because the bottoms are like the leg. It's the leg lamp. And so the bottoms are like the leg, like the stockinged leg. And then the top is like the
shirt
lamp.
With the fringe.
Yeah. I thought that was such a funny idea. And I have not seen those pajamas, but if they are a real thing, I might have to get them. But anyway, just one more thing to put in my stocking, I guess. How about the tango or the ballet?
Ooh, okay. To be quite honest, like in this book, give me tango every day, please.
Yeah, it's hot.
Please. I really liked that. I really liked that moment.
That
was a beautiful moment in the book.
Well, and dancing is like always sort of been, I know we've talked about this at least in like the film classes that I've taken, like dancing is usually like a metaphor for sex. So it's usually like if there's a dance scene in a romance and it's like before they have sex, it's usually like a very sexually tense scene, which I love. I'm like, yes, turn up the heat, burn this place down. Like, I love it. So I'm with you. I thought it was like a really great moment in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee tasting or tea tasting?
I am curious about the coffee tasting because of all the rare blends that are out there. But I would say I do prefer a tea tasting.
Really?
Based on my experience. I really do love tea tasting because I feel like there's a lot more
variety.
Not variety, but like there's more you can add to it. Like especially if you're on an herbal blend.
Sure.
And you're going through like the whole list of what you could add to it and going through it. It feels more like a froyo cup.
Yes.
To put it lightly.
I get it. I do. I get what you're saying.
Adding. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I like there's more, it's a little bit more fun to do a tea tasting, I think.
You're right. Cause like when it comes to coffee, like, and I love the coffee tasting they do in this book. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm getting a really in-depth lesson about coffee in this scene, but also I feel like I've gotten, gift boxes before where it'll have like 10 different kinds of coffee. And the only thing that separates them a lot of the time is like the notes. Like it'll be a floral note or, oh, it's a note of chocolate, a note of cherry, something like that. They're usually still the same beans. Like, I mean, it's not, I get what you're saying in that I do think there's a lot more options when it comes to tea.
It's like, I do enjoy tasting different coffees. I am someone who prefers a dark roast every time. But again, my only experience is with Arabic coffees.
Yeah.
Like I don't know any of the other types.
Yeah. We just haven't had a chance yet. Well, maybe if we start dating a rich, almost billionaire who can like whisk us away to these private coffee tastings at like roasteries in dark alleyways, like then we'll be able to get like the full experience. But until then, the last one that I have for you is a trip to Italy or a trip to Indonesia.
I'm going to go with Indonesia because as much as I love Italy, I do like the tropics as a place of visit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see tropical places. I've grown up in California and I've seen a lot of different cultures in California, like whether it's through architecture or whether it's through history. Like, I've seen a lot of Spanish influence, and Spain and Italy, while separate, tend to have parallels.
Sure.
And so I've just been like, it would feel very much the same growing up and then also being there. Because I grew up like around Santa Barbara, and there's a lot of Spanish colonial and other history that relates to that. And then also a lot of Italian influence on top.
Yeah. Good food too. I mean, let's not forget that. But no, I'm with you. I want to go to both. I've kind of been in Italy for like a day, but not really. And but Indonesia, like Bali specifically, has been on my list for like a long time. In fact, I think it was in middle school. I did like some random report on Bali, and I don't know why. I could not tell you why was it that we were talking about Bali and Indonesia? Have no idea. But I remember putting together something and doing research about it and just thinking it was beautiful and that the culture was beautiful, and I just really want to go.
Yeah, like same. I would love to visit and just experience it.
Well, let's book our tickets.
Ooh, ooh.
2023, the year of Bali.
Ballin' in Bali, baby.
Ballin' in Bali, 2023. Well, we will see if we can make that happen. And obviously, if we do, we'll have to podcast live from Bali.
Hell yes.
Hell yes. But I'm going to go ahead and give a synopsis for Nutcracker with benefits, and then we will have a little chat about this romance. So it goes like this. Clara. I love my life. As a food and travel blogger, I make my own hours, work all over the world, and don't have a single regret. The cherry on top is flying home to New York City to celebrate the holidays with my family and Nash. He's my best friend with benefits and was just named the sexiest billionaire bachelor of the year. He's all mine, for now, but someday Nash is going to break my heart. Nash. Clara can have her cake, whether it's pavlova, mochi, or tres leches, and eat it too. I have 24 hours to convince her that she can have everything she wants right here in the city, including me. Ooh, love it. Short, quick, to the point, and really, honestly, I will say I think that's a really accurate representation for what the story is they have been best friends and also friends with benefits for going on a decade, which honestly, I was like, I'm impressed.
It's like, how did you do this?
I'm impressed that you've been able to maintain a friendship while, I want to say regularly hooking up, but regularly to them is like once or twice a year, maybe 3 times if like they happen to meet up in the same location, because she travels all the time. She basically lives out of a suitcase, and that's very exciting, I will say. But, 10 years of hooking up with the same person twice a year and still being their best friend, like, it couldn't be me. It couldn't be me. Like, I'll just say that.
It's like, yeah, sure, we'll bang when you're in town, but hey, I've got a life to live. Like,
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I mean, it's like there is no like baggage with the relationship, but 10 years? You went without fucking it up for 10 years?
And
Like,
they're so chill about it too. Like, I mean, I was expecting there to be maybe like jealousy or, because they don't necessarily say like you can't hook up with anybody else. Like, they are both adults. They realize that like they live completely different lives in completely different places. So it's not like they've said we're exclusively hooking up, but you're right. I mean, it's wild to me that it's like they've been doing this for 10 years, no issues whatsoever. I'm impressed. It's something that if I could set it up myself and have a guarantee it would go this way, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, like, hello? where, what planet are you living on? Besides the penthouse, what floor are you on?
Well, and they have a really interesting relationship because not only are they friends, and I will say, maybe I just misread it, or maybe I just got like a little bit confused, but he was kind of taken in by her family. Like, they have a really interesting family dynamic because this is it in a nutshell. Haha, Nutcracker. Here we go. I had to do it. She has her dad and her stepdad. They are married. Her dad is bisexual. His wife passed away, which is one of the reasons why Clara is so eager to travel. However, when her dad and her stepdad got together, her stepdad, who, mind you, she doesn't call her stepdad, she calls her uncle. She calls him Uncle D.
Oh my God.
That's not confusing.
Nope.
When they got together, he is Arabic, so his family was super strict, super religious. He talks about them being like misogynistic, about them being super conservative, and he basically is shunned by the family when he, I don't want to say like rejects that, but just kind of like embraces these other things that he wants to do. And her parents take him in. He becomes kind of her pseudo brother. Eventually, when she goes to college, they start hooking up, and it's 10 years later. Whew. And he's in love with her. That's the other thing is, we don't want to miss that, but he is very much in love with her. So messy.
That's putting it lightly. So I would say it definitely is messy. And like, I love that the first chapter is essentially a mess, revealing the mess. I think that's probably the best way to put chapter 1 is revealing the mess.
Chapter 1 is one of the most traumatizing things I've ever read. And people are going to be confused that this isn't like, it's not an angsty book. It's not that this is like an actual traumatic event for most, but I will say this book begins with her flying in to stay with her family. And because she and Nash have been hooking up secretly on the down low for like the better part of 10 years, she goes to like climb on top of him in bed and surprise him. And it's her dad.
Merry Christmas.
When I tell you that is like, I mean, that's up there in like biggest nightmares that I could like possibly have in my, it sounds like the start of a different romance novel where it's like her friend hooks up with her dad or something like that.
Oops, I did it again.
Yeah. Can you imagine starting Christmas off this way and then poor Nash showing up and like the first thing out of these guys' mouths who have basically been his like pseudo parents for the last like 10 years. Oh, so you're sleeping with my daughter? I'm like, oh shit. Like we're just starting Christmas off with a bang.
It's not awkward at all.
Oh my God. Yeah. Liz Alden definitely was like, I want people to get really into this really quickly. And I mean, let me tell you, because I was like, I'm curious to see how we come out of that one. And thankfully, I will say, she also has like a shitty brother who I feel like is kind of shitty start to finish, Fritz. But it's not like a, brother's best friend story. It's not that, yes, they've been concealing this, but her family really loves him with the exception of her shitty brother. And so it's kind of like not really a problem. Like when they find out that they've been secretly hooking up. In fact, you can tell that like the dads want him want him to be with her because he's like such a good guy and they obviously love their daughter. So yeah, I did like that. I liked that there wasn't a lot of drama or tension or conflict that like came out of this secret relationship. That gave me comfort.
Yes. And again, going back to Fritz, it's like he's a great I would assume that he's like a great dad and that he cares about his kids. But in terms of him being anything other than just a guy, he's not that great.
He really isn't. And like everybody shits on him, including his wife, but like rightfully so. Like
Absolutely.
he just, well, and I will say, while I appreciate there being mentions of like characters calling out misogyny and the patriarchy, I will say it does feel a little forced sometimes. Like there are moments where Fritz will say something like, oh, he's sleeping with my sister, and he's acting all like a grumpy crybaby about it, even though Fritz doesn't seem like protective of his sister in any way from like the rest of the story. And his wife will literally just call out, that's the patriarchy. Stop that patriarchal bullshit. And I'm like, okay, yes, Queen, I understand where you're coming from. But there were like several moments like that. And it just, I don't know, it just felt a little too on the nose for me where I'm like, yes, like we know what it is. And I think you can show what the characters are feeling about it without necessarily having them be like, this right here, this is the patriarchy.
We can definitely touch on the subject and like poke fun at it. And I liked the use of the children as a means of discussing it because like you're trying to explain it to a child what you're doing and why you say these things. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely a good instrument for breaking it down. And I appreciate that. It does come off a little hand-fisted when it's trying to... But I get why she puts it in here. It's like, it's also a means of pushing narrative because we do need to have that epicenter of conflict when all the chips are down.
I'm with you. And I actually will say, I do really like the scene where... you know, Clara comes back to town and she is like chatting with her nieces and nephews and they're all young. They all see her maybe once a year because of her traveling. And I like that, you know, they want to ask her all these questions and their mom even tells her, oh, just so you know, like we've been having some discussions about like what sexuality means and everything because as it applies to the fact that, you know, Clara and Fritz have two dads. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is like a great way to do this without it being like too on the nose because yes, they would want to talk to their aunt who they haven't seen in like a year. And yes, if this is something they're already talking about, it makes sense for them to probably ask her these questions as well. But I will say I kind of wanted something like that to come into effect later because we have all these conversations around the kids. They talk about the patriarchy. They talk about, you know, people having two moms and two dads. And I was waiting for like one of the moments that Nash has later to be like the kids calling him on like the patriarchy or something, like just pointing at him and going, patriarchy! Because I was like, oh my God, that would be like the ultimate plant and payoff is like, they have this basic understanding of what it is. And then they call him on his bullshit later. Like I would have lived for that. So I guess there were things like that where they were cute. They gave the characters some definition. Obviously, I love having the inclusion of an Arabic character. I love having these two fathers, and one of them, it's even their relationship is interesting because one of them is bisexual and had a wife for many years, and the other one was like a longtime friend who was their uncle, and then he was their stepdad, and that's really interesting. So I think the character dynamics in this book are definitely different than I feel like what I read in a lot of romance, let alone holiday romance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing we have to talk about the most, though, is definitely what we would consider to be like the third act breakup, which is where she, you know, he basically pleads his undying love to her and she's like, that's a lot. to put on me when I'm about to get on a plane and leave to do my job, to do my passion. And not only are you telling me you love me, you're expecting me to stay. So
Yes.
that was a lot, because I will say, while I obviously am like, oh, this is so romantic. On the one hand, I'm thinking this is so romantic. He's planned this wonderful day for them. He wants to give her this idea of like, here are these delicious things. You can do your job here. You don't have to travel all the time. New York is wonderful. I want to convince you that not only do you love me, but like, this is enough. You can stay here and be with me. I'm like, on the one hand, very romantic. On the other hand, I put myself in Clara's shoes and I'm like, what the actual fuck, dude? Like, are you for real? Like, she is a food and travel blogger. She has made a living doing this, traveling the world for 10-ish years. And you're about to just ask her to give all that up to stay and like not go? Like, like that was patriarchy right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pointing it. It was a lot where I was like, I can't believe you're doing this and not recognizing this is like not being fully thought out.
It really wasn't. Like, this is a great, like, fucking a magical Nutcracker date. Like, we're gonna go to all the different fucking lands and go on a great adventure. But at the end of it, you're not the Rat King, and I'm not marrying you.
Right. There you go. And obviously, I know he's asking her to compromise, which is fine, but does he not understand how a compromise works? Because, like, if this is a partnership, if I'm giving something, you need to also be giving something back. And I think this is just kind of like indicative, not to shit on your gender, Owen, but I think this is kind of...
I hate men.
I think this is kind of indicative of where a lot of cis straight men are at today, in that they just want. And women are kind of at a place right now where they're saying, I can't give you anymore. Like, we're already at like a 60-40 relationship. Like, even if the financials are 50-50, even if they're not, I'm putting in so much extra emotional labor and domestic labor to the point where I just have nothing else to give. What are you giving me? If the answer is my love and Nutcracker dates, he's not the one. He's not the one.
No. He's like, look, the sex may be great. I really am curious about trying with toys.
Loved that.
I was like, oh, toys. We're doing this with toys. And I'm like, 3 times in a row? Wow. Okay, here we go.
A+.
Guaranteed that nut.
Stop it. Even the nut doesn't make up for this like lack of, it's almost like emotional intelligence, really, because I'm just like, I don't know what you're not
It's
seeing.
very manipulative.
Yes, exactly. And obviously we want them to get together, and we know that in the end, like, he's going to have to like recognize the flaw in his logic and like everything. But I will say, the other thing that kind of bothered me about this whole thing, not that he made this mistake, because again, I recognize that people are going to like fuck up in real life and in romance novels. It's all about how they apologize, how they do better and like move forward and everything. And what I thought was really interesting was I was expecting him to make some grand gesture to like win her back at the end. And she's the one who comes to him. Like, I don't know. That felt, and I know he does do something for himself. Like, I do think that is important to mention, that he decides he's finally going to take off some work, because we're kind of left with this idea that he's maybe a little bit of a workaholic. So he's going to take some time, do some solo traveling to kind of try to understand where she's at and like why this is important to her, but also take care of himself. And so on the one hand, I love that. I do love that he is taking steps to better himself. I did think it was a little weird that she was the one to kind of reach out and make amends.
I get the idea of like, I want to accept a marriage, but under these terms and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the compromise situation that they were in, and he accepted those terms.
Right.
Because she was the one holding the quote-unquote board meeting.
She makes a whole fucking PowerPoint. Like, are you kidding me? She is my soulmate. Like, she makes a whole PowerPoint with a calendar that's like, this is my plan. This is what I have on the calendar for next year. But when I'm thinking about, like, my 5-year plan, I'd like to get to the point where I'm doing this, and I can base myself out of New York, and we can take these trips together. I'm just like, look at all the work she has done. What are you, sir, bringing to the table besides your barrel of money?
Obviously, he's good at giving her sex and getting her off. Like, that is definitely something of the only benefit that I have seen with this man.
Yeah, that's the Nutcracker.
There's
with
a reason
benefits.
why. Yeah, that's literally, it's in the title. Like, obviously, he's got a good dick and he knows how to get her off. Like, that is the only point of, other than being good friends, that I can see why this relationship is working as it is. He's got husband dick. That's the best way to phrase it.
He has some, like, he's definitely got, he's really into culture. Like, he likes ballet. He has season tickets to the ballet. I'm like, fantastic. He likes taking her to these different cultural food experiences, which I'm like, oh, fantastic. Like, this, I would love to go on one of these dates, let alone this being like one long day that we do these things. But it just didn't seem like he was bringing enough to the table in the end for me to believe that this would be, yes, a romantic relationship moving forward. Like, I just was like, what's changed?
Nothing. Like, he's selling the concept of New York to her.
Yeah.
That is it. The concept of New York being biodiverse and multicultural is what he is selling.
And while that is nice, I kind of thought it would be more about, like, let me sell you the concept of us. Like, how can I sell you this vision of what our future could look like together if you stay in New York? And yes, that might include food, but I think there would be, and the dick, of course, like, but I think there would be other things. Like, you would want to entice them to be your partner, as opposed to just like, I want to entice you to stay in this city.
Like, she already has like all the stakes lined out. But what the fuck is he offering her to the table? Like, he's not bringing much else other than what he has already given.
And I think it would be different if it was one of those stories where, like, she makes it clear, whether it's to him or in her own, like, personal narration, that she's tired of this life, that she's, like, tired of traveling, or, like, she isn't getting out of it what she wants to anymore. But that's never the case. Like, no. Start to finish, she talks about how much she loves these travels that she does, and she loves meeting the people. And, even when they go to the local places in New York, she asks them questions. She wants to know all about them and their process and how it began and the history, and that doesn't change. So I don't really know why. Like, if I was her, I would go. I wouldn't stay. Like, yeah. I would go.
Yeah. Like, damn, go for it.
And if he wanted to come with, or he wanted to try to make it work with my schedule, great. However, if I'm going to compromise and I'm going to give up things that I am passionate about, that I love to do, you better be offering me something in exchange.
Obviously, material possession does not mean anything. She loves them, but she doesn't care about them. And she loves family. Like, her biggest thing that I can see as a reason for sticking around New York is to be a part of her family life.
Right.
To be more involved in family. That's it. Nash is not the crux for that. Nash is like is extra.
He's the benefits. Those benefits we're still unsure of. Like I said, I still have a lot of questions, but Was there, since we're talking about the benefits themselves, was there a specific steamy scene or sexcerpt that you wanted to highlight and or share?
To be quite honest, I thought the horniness of the changing room was
Yes.
absolutely the best. And then him tasting the fluid. Like I was like, okay,
Yep.
you have me sold right now. Like you are not grossed out. You accept all things. I like this.
That was the scene I chose as well. And like there is another scene or two where they actually have sex, but I'm with you. Like they just finished doing the tango and they're like staring into each other's eyes. And I think he even tells her, "You've got horny eyes," which I thought was funny. And then he's just like, "Yeah, let me just get you off real quick." And, you know, I do think it's a nice kind of emotional moment too, because they both make it clear that like they haven't been with anybody else since they were with each other, like the last time. And that's nice. I've got like a little patch from that I'll share, and I'll start from here. This surprised me as well because like I was not expecting him to use the word cunt, and it does pop up once, which again, very surprising. So we'll go from, "There's a patch of dampness on her thigh inches below her cunt, and I moan in her ear when I hit it. I tease her, circling my finger, even though I know we don't really have time for this. It's a good thing," Clara says, then gasps as I trace her seam. She has to catch her breath before she can continue. "It's a good thing it's been 10 months, 15 days, and I don't know, a few hours since I've been with anyone else. That was me. She hasn't been with anyone else since we were last together. I do quick math." And then he repeats it. Clara laughs, but it's pained as I circle her clit. My 2 fingers are slick and she's swollen, easy to find. I press harder, and she grabs my biceps, fingers digging in. "I'm so close already," she warns. "Just to take the edge off, I'll take good care of you later." I know. Clara's babbling stops, and her mouth falls open on a silent scream. She's on the tips of her toes. I can feel her pulsing and wish that I was buried inside of her. And then he like sucks her off his fingers too.
It's so good. Oh,
Yeah.
that is
It's
a
a great
beautiful
build
scene.
up too. That whole like the dance scene leading up to it. I'm like, I love this because you've given us like this build with the dance and then
the emotional submission and domination, and then this payout at the end of it. You're like, ooh, that was good.
Yeah. I really liked a lot of the book. Like I liked the dates that they went on. I liked, like I said earlier, the characters. I think I'm invested to find out more about Clara in the next book. She's the personal stylist and shopper that I was like, ooh, you're cool. Like, I want to know more about you. I'm curious. So I think, you know, when the next one rolls around next winter, I'll probably pick it up and read it.
Like, I definitely think that the female characters, again, are just amazing in terms of, like, having a good life. And then that the men are just big dicked and do whatever the hell they need to.
They're dicks with big dicks.
It's big dick or whatever dick or the appropriately sized dick for your life.
Oh yeah,
like this is the appropriate size.
We kind of know his size too because at one point during their dinner, she says something like, "This is the best thing I've had in my mouth, except for you." And then she specifies, "Okay, this is the best thing I've had in my mouth that was less than 6 inches." And I'm just like, there were just a few moments where I guess I wasn't expecting that really did make me laugh or just kind of like gasp in surprise. So I'm okay with that. I feel like anytime I can be surprised, I'm excited about it, especially after reading so many romance novels. So since I'm talking about the humor, I think we should give this book a few ratings. And on this podcast, we rate for heart, humor, heat, and because it is the season, holiday. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be for you, of course, Owen. Let's start with heart. What do you think?
It's going to be about a 7. Like we definitely talk about a lot of emotional and significance to why these characters are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
Yeah.
definitely get into the childhood trauma. We definitely get into the family dynamic. We definitely, because it is in the family.
Hmm.
And so it's very not like that,
It makes it sound like flowers in the attic, but it's not.
No. Please keep it out of the family. It definitely brings that sort of emotional connection and the need of that connection. As I've been very much against Nash being like a good match for her, it's that he is family in the sense that there's that much emotional connection to a person.
Well, and I think he's a great friend. Like
Yes.
I do think he's a really good friend. So I think they have that connection. I think I would have wanted to have spent a little more time with them in order to see like the love connection, but you're totally right. Like I think this book does great with family. I think they have a great friendship. So I gave this a 7 as well. I think if I was rating just for like the romantic connection, it might have been a little bit lower. But when
Hmm.
you add in like the family and so there's just so many emotional ties that I do think I would bump it up to a 7. So, how about the humor? How about that 6-inch humor?
It fits in perfectly. Um, in terms of humor, there was at least there was a few moments where I just burst laughing because I'm like, that's so dumb. Because
Yeah.
it killed me, and I was like, this is fantastic, I love this. And whether it was actually a joke in the book or whether it was just a moment where you're like, this is so campy, I
Mhm.
can't believe it's true, I would say
Mhm.
that the humor, the lightness of it, it's like at least an 8. Like
Okay.
I'm really curving it hard here, but I think it's an 8 in terms
That's
of
fine. I'm
humor.
going to I'm going to curve it down a little bit. So, less hard, more flaccid. And I'm going to go probably closer to like a 6.5. Like, but I'm with you. I do think there was great moments of levity. I think the kids added like a little bit of fun. I love a good, one-liner here. I thought her dads were great. I kind of wanted to see a little bit more from the family, although I do love that one of the dads like rolls up on like an airplane in the water near the end. I
Yeah.
was like,
You're just like, what?
damn, daddy's like James Bond. Like, what's going on? So I personally, whose book I want to read? I want to read the dad's book.
Oh,
Like,
fuck
that's the
yes.
story I want to read.
Give me more gay romance.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's something that like she's written already or if it's something she's ever thought about, but God, I would read the shit out of those dads romance. Like they were great. Anyway, that's a whole different book, hopefully for a different day. And how about Heat?
Okay, so it's like there are moments, and then we have like a couple flashback references,
Mhm.
but it like this the sex is like it's there, it's about it, and they're hot. But in terms of like sexual tension,
Yeah.
I wish there was more.
I do too.
if you've been if you've been doing this for 10 years, there is something magnetic about the two of you that
Mhm.
creates so much tension. Like I wanted more tension, like the tango.
I wish this book was a week long. Like I wish she was visit and I guess it kind of is because I think we flash to her like on New Year's in Australia, but I wish their 1 day date thing that they go on, I wish that was a week. I wish there was a week
Yes.
of them having this, maybe even still trying to sneak around. Maybe like there's still some sneaking around with it or, kind of having to draw this out and maybe him even not wanting to have sex with her like right away to make it so she can see that there's more to their relationship than just an annual hookup. Like I would have loved to have seen more because the tango scene, you're totally right, so hot. And even after that, she's like, let's just go, like let's just go home and like eat junk food and like have sex. And he's like, no, but I'll give you a little something now. And so I'm like, yes, the tease. I love it. I'm with you. I wish we would have teased it all out like a little bit longer. Maybe that would have like kind of helped develop like the romance a little more clearly for us too. Is not only like the sexual chemistry, but like also the romance. So I'm with you. This one's tough for me because like for Boobies and Noobies, I always give it at least a 5 if there's an open door sex scene. And this does have that. Although I will say the sex scene itself is actually fairly short and like not the most explicit. But when it does come to like, you know, him finger banging her in the, you know, changing room and
dressing
like
room, yeah.
Yeah, and the dance scene and them, you know, kind of just the eyes they give each other and everything. I'm like, ooh, okay. So I think I would maybe bump it up to like a 6. Oh no, they do use toys, and I do say I give extra bonus points for toys. So 7. I'll get it up to a 7 with this one. And I know she mentions, she's like, yeah, I'm always worried that like, you know, TSA is gonna like open up my bag and there's like a dildo inside or something. And I'm just
who gives a shit?
Who cares? This is not like in this year 2022, you cannot be concerned about taking a vibrator on an airplane. I'm sorry, you can't. Like,
I would love for them to confiscate the industrial-sized barrel of anal lube that I will be hauling in my personal carry-on. Like, that is the kind of interaction I want with the TSA.
Honestly, there's the start of another romance novel right there. Right there. Not enough people finding love with TSA agents who are busting open their suitcases full of sex toys and lube. So, you know what? You've just given me a fantastic idea, Owen. So I thank you for that.
Another for the notes.
There you go. And then last but not least, we have to do the holiday ranking, which actually I'm a little torn on this one as well, because yes, they do reconvene in New York during Christmas. And I know that their whole date is very Nutcracker inspired. But is it Christmas? Like, is it Christmassy?
Chapter 1, again, when it comes into the whole family effort, and I say like this, with the family being part of it, like, yes, that's Christmas. Like,
and they're all wearing their Christmas pajamas and opening presents. Like, no, for sure, that is Christmas. I totally get that.
Absolutely. Like, it's definitely, that is the vibe. But they use it as a point of exposition.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not necessarily about Christmas. Like, we're here in Christmas, at Christmas, this is what's happening, and here's New Year's.
No, it's just interesting because I feel like a lot of holiday romance, and I know a lot that we've discussed on the podcast for Boobsmas this year, a lot of it leads up to whatever holiday is occurring, whether it's, you know, we've covered Hanukkah, Christmas, and we even have a Kwanzaa romance that's coming up. And a lot of it usually concludes with the big holiday. And I don't read a lot where it starts on the big holiday, because this one begins at Christmas and then she's out of there. A couple days later, we do get to see her in New Year's on the boat in Australia. But then, you know, it's him on a beach somewhere taking care of himself. It's her going to meet him on the beach. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this one because it starts off with Christmas full throttle, but it kind of just dwindles down from there. So I think I'm only going to give it like maybe a 6.
Yeah, like if there had been, again, more time for build-up, so like Christmas was in the second act of it, that would give it more principle, because if you're talking about days after Christmas, usually the days after Christmas is where everyone's like, oh, fuck this holiday.
I know.
Like, everyone's ready to just be done with the tree, done with the lights, done with the gifts. They're done with family. Everyone's just fed up, tired, and bitter, and they're ready to get drunk on New Year's.
Yeah, and everything about their dates isn't necessarily Christmassy. Like, they try coffee. They try, they go to like a spice market. They have another, you know, place where they go to eat that thing where it's like the bowl that's kind of like made out of like pancake batter, which I thought sounded great. And I was like, well, this is wonderful. And like, I love that he's showing her this, but it's not Christmas. Like it's, but then I also remember that it is Nutcracker with benefits. They all have names from the Nutcracker. So there are some minor connections to the story of the Nutcracker that are woven throughout. But,
But she's
not Christmas.
I mean, like, when you give a title like the Nutcracker, I was expecting more of an arc like the Nutcracker, where he becomes some sort of hero for her in her moment of peril. But she doesn't really have a moment of peril. She's fine.
Yeah.
She can do it herself.
Exactly. I'm like, honestly, I'm okay with her not having this moment of peril.
It's like, okay, if we're gonna go with this Nutcracker theme, then give me some peril or a moment of like where he has to fucking do something. But he doesn't do anything.
It's just a punny title, and that's it. And we still don't know what the benefits are other than his pile of money and his bigger than 6 inches penis. Like, that's what we got. That's what we're working with. I'm glad that you made your first foray into holiday romance, or just romance in general. And I mean, it seems like it was positive enough to maybe warrant future romance reading.
I definitely need to take more of a gander. Like, I've seen, I know of Bridgerton, and that's usually people's starting point when starting into this genre.
At least today. I mean, it's what 50 Shades was like 15 years ago.
Yes. But yeah, I definitely am curious about trying some more novellas and other types like this.
Well, and maybe we'll get lucky. Liz Alden will write the romance for Clara's dads, which I think would make us both very happy.
Yes, more representation. Do not give me cis relationships. Give me more diversity.
Yes, well, you'll be happy to know that during the 12 days of Boobsmas, we have, I think, at least three or four queer romances that we're reading for the 12 days of Boobsmas. And most of them are part of a kind of unofficial series that the authors are calling the Holigays. So,
oh my God.
We've had a few Holigays reads this year, and I read queer romance all year long. So I am always happy when I see it in the holidays as well. So we will definitely hook you up, and there will be plenty more for you to read, whether Liz Alden writes it or not.
Well, it doesn't have to be Liz, but I'm open to every option under the sun.
Delightful. So we've only got a few more days of Boobsmas left to go. Everybody listening, stay tuned because you won't have to wait for long. But until the next episode, I will leave you with this. On the 9th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 9 naughty spankings. Ooh, so musical.
On the 9th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 9 naughty spankings, 8 rock hard abs, 7 minutes in heaven, 6 billionaires, 5 penis